Did you know that there's a strategy that enables podcasters to get discovered far more easily by new listeners than trying to attract new listeners on Spotify and Apple Podcasts? And most podcasters either aren't using it to its fullest potential or aren't using it at all. Auret Esselen from Esselen Media joins me on this episode to share how podcasters can utilise YouTube to attract new and ideal listeners on autopilot. And even if your podcast is audio only, you'll find out how to still make use of YouTube to grow your audience. And in this episode, we cover how to grow your podcast on YouTube, how to write titles that attract new listeners on autopilot, exactly what your thumbnails should include to get people to click, how to start your podcast episodes to keep people listening, how to benefit from YouTube for audio-only podcasts, and much more. So if you aren't getting the traction you're after on YouTube, or you just want to know how you can start leveraging this largely untapped strategy, then keep listening. So Auret, why should a podcaster be on YouTube, in your opinion?
YouTube just released a culture and trends report earlier this year. And one of the things that they cited was that podcasts are exploding on the platform. And specifically, there are, it's something like 1 billion monthly active searches for podcast users. And it's like, it's starting to become the norm for people to just listen to podcasts, whether it's while they're doing stuff in their car, and even the trends towards people watching YouTube on television and that kind of thing and playing it in the background. The YouTube platform itself is not just another social media platform. It's really it's like the place where culture is made, and where it's like taking over TV. So I think it's a huge opportunity for podcasters to be on that platform, to expand their reach, to invite new listeners into the conversation, and to really make an impact.
Yeah, one word that you mentioned that I think is really important for podcasters to think about is the word, when you said searches. And because everyone wants their podcast to grow, they want more people to find it, ideally organically, so they don't have to put in sort of dozens of hours a week. And YouTube, from my experience, works a lot better as a search engine by far than any of the podcast platforms.
Yeah, I mean, it is the discovery engine, and it is the OG, or the original, search engine, if you tied to Google. And I love the fact that on this platform, in comparison to, if you look at Instagram or TikTok, you can still find content on the platform from posted years ago. Your stuff becomes evergreen, and that is huge because you're putting the effort into creating a podcast episode, and you want that to live for a very long time. Whereas on these other platforms, it just disappears very quickly in the feed.
Yeah, I definitely noticed that with my podcast. I'll go back and see an episode has, for whatever reason, started showing up, like YouTube has started recommending it to other people, whereas that doesn't tend to happen as much with Spotify and iTunes and things, like you say.
Yeah.
Just for a little bit of context, so you work with businesses, with people on their content strategy on YouTube, is that right?
Yeah, so our specialty is really helping you grow on YouTube, but using it for business. So whether you want to get more clients, attract the right client from the platform, grow your email list, get more sales to a particular offer, it's really the strategy around how can you leverage this platform, this powerful discovery engine, to get more reach and to attract the right person who's going to watch that video or listen to that episode, and then end up on a landing page of yours, let's say, to opt in to something that you have offered, or to purchase an offer that you have. So that's really what we specialize in, because that itself is a different strategy from, I want to be like a YouTuber, a vlogger, lifestyle, like going viral, all that kind of stuff. It's a different strategy. And I find that a lot of business owners who come to us, they'll think that this is what they need to do, is like create these sort of viral things, because people are doing it on the other platforms, right? Like TikTok and everything. And they feel like they need to do that to be seen. But it's just a matter of, really honing in on what do you want the channel to do for you, and how can we ensure that we're attracting the right person to watch those videos, because it's like a huge, your videos are a warming asset, right? That's how people get to know you. It's still so cool when I get comments of like, people who have watched our videos for years, and they feel like they already know you, and then they end up engaging with what you have on your website.
Yeah. And one of the biggest sort of mistakes that I see podcasters making with YouTube, and you might have some other ideas on what mistakes people are making, but like they'll understand sort of these basics of what you're saying, like how you should be on YouTube, and it can help with your authority and get people to discover you and that. But they don't maybe realize the work that needs to go into it, and they'll cut their podcast audio, maybe put a banner around it, or even just grab the Zoom call recording and do nothing with it and just chuck it on YouTube. No thumbnail. The title might just say sort of podcast name, episode, something or other, and then wonder why YouTube isn't doing anything for them, or maybe just thinking that that's all YouTube can do. But what do you think they're 100%. Missing there? And is that something you've seen? Because I know some of your clients have podcasts as well.
Yes. Yeah. So I'll give you an example with a particular client that we worked with. She was a podcaster first and had a successful podcast and wanted to use YouTube to expand the reach for that. And we started off doing an audit on her channel. And when we audited it was very much like she was just putting her episodes pretty much as is, like even some of the titles. And this is like a pet peeve when I see this, is like when people title episode 17 interview with da 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 da. It's almost like they're using that as the title when it's more like a file name that sits on your computer, So yeah, so she was doing that, and just repurposing the podcast episodes. And the thing with that is you have to understand that YouTube's audience and the way that they digest the information or interact or engage with the content on the platform is entirely different from the way your podcast audience would engage with your content on those other like on Spotify or Apple, for example. So it's keeping that in mind, and also keeping in mind that the platform is very much leaning more towards like so many people are watching YouTube on television now, and I feel like that percentage is going to grow even more than mobile even. It is becoming like the new cable TV. So keeping all of these things in mind with how people watch your videos, you need to cater the content towards that. And what that looks like is, especially if you're putting your podcast on the platform, is there something that you could do to create a hook in the beginning? Maybe it's something that you've said later on in the episode that you could put in the beginning as like a 20-second hook. And don't worry about all the like introductions and like, hi, my name is da 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 da. And, because it's just when someone clicks on the video, they want to just get right into it and engage with it. So if you're giving them a reason to stay in those first 20 seconds, that's going to work to your favor on the platform, because YouTube sees that watch time, and then they'll go and share it with more people or like audiences who have watched similar content on the platform. So that's one thing in terms of like editing the podcast. But also the packaging is really important. And when I say packaging, I'm mainly referring to the YouTube thumbnail and the title. So you really do want to spend time thinking about what title or what thumbnail can I use that will really speak to the right viewer for this episode. And I can give you an example. Like, so one of those episodes that when we were working with her, she talks about, she talks about like diet for dysregulated kids. And that's like, her podcast is for parents who work with kids that have difficult behaviors to manage. So the titling might be something like, you got to think about what would they be searching for, right? Like putting it in those terms. Maybe they're searching for diet for kids with autism or whatever the thing is, right? Whatever her episode is about. You can title it like that for search, or you can title it for browse or suggested algorithm, because YouTube's made up of many different algorithms. There's a search algorithm, there's a shorts algorithm, there's the browse, the suggested algorithm. It's not just one algorithm. And so, the other way that you could go is using a hook, where it's like this one, I'm just making this up on the spot, like this one fruit completely reduced my child's tantrums in less than 24 hours or something like that, and when you're doing that, it's more catering it to the browse and suggested algorithm, which that algorithm is the one that YouTube recommends after you've watched a related video or off to the side. If you remember being on YouTube and it's a video that pops up, whereas the search is someone specifically searching for that. And we use both methods because both methods, they're both very effective, but you have to know which one to use and when. And to go a little bit, I don't know if you want to go into that a little bit more, but I'm happy to. But those are some things offhand that I would do differently rather than just repurposing your podcast episode.
Cool. Okay, yeah, there's a lot there. Let's kind of break it down into little sections, because some of the listeners might have sort of just gotten started, or they just kind of upload their episodes. They might have thought of some of these things and not all of them. So in terms of the hook, that was one of the earlier things that you said in there. This is something that we kind of experiment with and try and get right. So for video episodes, we'll put together a trailer that it opens with, like a really hooky trailer, or a custom recorded intro from the host. And then it just goes straight into it. But then for the audio episode, we do a separate edit where it's got that kind of generic intro, because it's easier to keep people hanging around with the audio podcast. So what can people do? Like, what shouldn't you do with a hook? What should you do with a hook? And when I say hook, that's like the first 30 seconds to keep them watching and it's going to prevent them from clicking away.
Yeah. So there's, first I'll say that you really have to be in competition with yourself. So when you're testing these different things that you're doing in your episodes, you want to pay attention to the analytics and see what has really kept people retention or engagement longer, and to just always improve upon that, because it's different for every audience. So I'll say that first, because I know some people, see what, Joe's doing over here and then try to copy it, but it may not necessarily work. But certain things like, can you speak to a particular desire that your viewer has? Can you speak to a particular pain point that they have, and that's the reason why they landed on your video, because they were searching for, a particular, they were asking a question, and you're right away in the beginning saying you're going to address that. And you can even bust a particular myth or something in their minds that they're already thinking, and you're like, no, actually, that's not how it works. In this video, I'm going to dive into why that is, or in this podcast episode. So you really have to it's like viewer first mentality. You have to get into their minds and think, why would they click on this video? Why are they clicking on this video? And how can I address those reasons right in the beginning, and let them know that we're going to address that and dive into it. And you can even share an outcome. Like, by the end of this video, you will X, Y, Z, right? So those are some things that can really help them stick around.
Yeah, I think that viewer first mentality, it's like a switch that
Totally.
is kind of hard to get into your head, because you're just thinking it from the perspective of your own content, your own business, or you enjoyed the interview, so why shouldn't anyone else? But when you can make that shift in your mind? Like, how would you feel finding this kind of content for another, for whatever you're interested in? And, you click on something thinking it's going to solve your problems. And then the video opens with, so such and such person who I've never heard of in my life, how did you get to where you are today? And it's like, what are we talking about here? I'm not interested in this random person's life story.
Exactly. They don't even know you yet. That's like, you can say that like after 100 videos if you want. Later in the video, when people start to really get to know you, and they can find out. I mean, people naturally find out more about you through your stories and what you talk about, right? So you don't need to do this whole fancy intro. It's really what matters is what you're saying and how you're helping your viewer.
And we're kind of going backwards here because I just said about the hook, and you gave some really good information about that. But then before that, they actually need to click on the video, obviously. And you mentioned about the titles, about, not putting the episode number and things like that because it's just not relevant. I guess when you mentioned about the search strategy, so positioning your episodes like they would come up in someone's feed if they search for a particular problem versus the recommended feed strategy, whereas you're positioning it so that YouTube reckons that a lot of people will be interested. I'm guessing that you wouldn't want to try and focus too much on both of those at once because if you were titling an episode, you would either use a search term that you think people are going to search for, or you would use these other strategies to come up in the recommended feed, or is that not the case?
Yeah. So when you say both at once, you can do, like, let's say you release one video a week. You can release a video that's a search-based title, and then the next week release something that's more of a hook. But it's not about like just mixing it up for the sake of it. It's really, asking yourself, what is it better? In order for me to get more reach and for more people to see this, is it better for me to optimize this for search, or is it better for me to optimize this for browse? And I know we're getting really technical here for someone who's just getting started, but this has really been like in my work of, managing clients' channels and YouTube coaching and everything. This has really been like the secret sauce here that has made, it's been a game changer in terms of results. And the way that you approach that is, let's say you're doing an interview episode similar like this. If there's really a concrete topic to that episode that if someone were to search for that and they right away get what they were looking for, then that would be, leverage the search for that, leverage the basically title it in a way where someone would be searching for that, put the search phrase in there. If it's more of a conversation, and there's different things that we're talking about in this interview, we're talking about like visibility in general. There's different social media platforms we're talking about, that kind of thing. Then you may want to go more for a hook because no one's necessarily searching for all of the things that you mentioned in there. It's a lot at once. And if someone were to like search for that and click on it, they might just bounce because you're talking about many different things and you're not really giving them fully what they came for. So in that case, it would be good to go with more of a hook because that kind of viewer is more of in a discovery phase, like, oh, this looks interesting, let me click on it and hear what they have to say type thing. That mentality is different from someone who's like actively asking for help in the search, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So, for example, if I just a good example for the listeners with this particular episode they're watching right now, if I found a search term like how to grow a podcast on YouTube, that would be like a search strategy term. Whereas if I was going for more of a hook, a recommended strategy, I could maybe, I mean, you'd know better than me because I tend to use the search strategy for our clients and for me. So, and also I guess it depends what's kind of trendy at the moment, but it would be more something like this YouTuber with over 60,000 subscribers. I'd focus on that element of what you have to offer.
Yeah, or expand your podcast reach on YouTube by like 10x or something like that. With these insights, with these tips. it's hooks are usually, if you can, it's good to include numbers in them if you can. Results based, also curiosity based. Like it's curious. You don't know what I'm going to say, but it speaks to a desire point that you want, which is to increase your podcast reach 10x. Like that sounds juicy, right? So it's really an art of coming up with hooks. And honestly, you can use ChatGPT to help with that, and ask it for suggestions, and it just all comes down to testing with your audience and what speaks to them.
Yeah, and I know obviously we don't have the exact inner workings of all the algorithms, but I feel like the recommended strategy is a little bit harder to pinpoint, and it depends more on maybe what's trendy at the moment. Like you can see certain trends of videos that are often coming up in the recommended feed that I guess you could kind of copy the style of. Like I see a lot of I did this, and then it'll be some crazy thing like I spoke with 1,000 such and such and asked them such and such, or I filled a bus with bouncy balls, or like Mr. Beast style, these kind of crazy things.
Yeah, and that's going a little bit more into the viral piece, like but what I would say is, in your niche or space, there are other more influential people. Like, let's say you talk about business, for example. Go check out what Alex Hormozy is doing, right? Or Dan Martell. What are the videos on his channel that really are more like popular, more so than the others? And you don't even need to go that big. You could, go like, there's just like a tier below or something like that. And look at the subscriber to view ratio. It's really, it's even more juicy if you find a video that has way more views than the amount of subscribers that they have.
Yeah.
Because that's a signal. And what is that video about? Can you do your own version of it? And then can you use similar packaging, or similar titling, similar thumbnail? Don't copy, obviously, but just like do something similar, put your own spin on it. Or you could even do a commentary on that, if you want, like actually giving your thoughts on that person's direct video, and doing something like that. That will really help you leverage that browse suggested piece. And the other thing I say, because it brought up another idea in my mind when I was like doing a commentary, I know that that's not necessarily something you would do with your podcast, but I really do encourage a lot of our clients nowadays to do more solo videos and content if you are someone who does just interviews with your podcast. Especially if your strategy is to use your podcast to grow your business and to attract the right clients. People need to see you as the authority, and you speaking to camera, and you sharing your knowledge and insights on these things, and giving a direct call to action in that video to go check out whatever it is, opt in for free download or whatever it is. That is really important to include in your content strategy on YouTube.
Cool. There's another kind of challenge that I notice, just going sort of staying with the kind of clickability of a video, like the thumbnails. I think people often design thumbnails to what looks kind of nice on a computer screen. So it will have like headshots of the guest and their name and their job title, and then maybe the whole episode title with text, and then their logo and their podcast logo and all these things. And then you look at it the size of a postage stamp on your phone or something, and you can't even read what it says. So is this something you've noticed, and have you got like a quick rundown of things that people need to think about when they're creating thumbnails for their episodes?
Yeah, 100%. I was actually going back to the client that I shared with you earlier, who shares parenting tips for dysregulated children. That was also something that we had to tweak on her channel, was the thumbnails, and she got like 50% more reach and views once we tweaked that for her. So it's really, really important. And one of the things that we've noticed, again, always be in competition with yourself, A/B test, your audiences are going to be different from mine. But like one of the things that we did notice is like you can't treat your YouTube thumbnail as a graphic designed, like it's not, you got to think of it as really like a billboard, in a way, because it's like it's what can you say in very few words. If you are putting text on the thumbnail, you don't always have to, but what's going to capture their attention, and and ask yourself, like, making the design decisions through that lens for everything. So is putting the logo on there going to really capture attention? Not really, because people don't know what that is, or they've never seen that before. Unless you're talking about, let's say, something recognizable, like we put the YouTube logo on some of our thumbnails because we talk about YouTube, right? That's just like an instant thing that speaks to what the video is about. But so running it through that filter. The other thing is very few text, like less than 5 words, I would say, because sometimes I've seen, like, sometimes people put the actual title of the video in the thumbnail, and don't do that. You want to use that real estate. You want to leverage that real estate, and you can say something different in there that's different from the title, that still captures attention. And yes, you also have to remember that people are seeing this on their phone, and it's like tiny, like you said, a stamp. So definitely use like bigger, bolder text, even though that might not be your font. Like sometimes you have to release like your branding from it, in a sense, because you're really going for, like, can people see this on the mobile, and is it going to capture their attention and speak to what they're looking for? And then the other thing too is, how can you tell a story with the other design elements on there? Like, for example, going back to this client, let's just use the same example of like the diet for autistic kids. We would put an image of an autistic kid, and maybe their parents as well, on there, and like maybe it's like dinner time or whatever, and they're just like looking at their food and not being impressed, right? Because that speaks to the scenario that the viewer is used to and it's a pain point. They need help with that. So is there a way that you could tell a story with the design or the imagery? That's one way to go about it. If not, it can be as simple as, like, putting really powerful text on there, and an image of yourself. Usually more closer shots work well, we found. And then you can, again, always test and see what works.
Yeah. Awesome. That's really helpful. And I hope it helps people sort of rethink things. What you're saying about like feeling the pain point, I think that's it. Like you need to look at this thumbnail and think, is this going to make someone feel something? Because if it's not, they're just going to scroll past. It reminds you of, and examples of those kind of short bits of copy. It reminds me of like Diary of a CEO, where the episode will be like, the title will be something like, how to, make sure that you're a millionaire by the time you're 40 or something. And then the copy is not just going to say that again. It will say something like, don't buy a house, or just something that makes you think like, wait, what? I thought buying real estate was a good idea. And then it's like, I've got to know why you said this.
Yeah, it's a pattern interrupt. It's creating that emotional response, like, what? And then it's curiosity, right? It's going to make them click.
Yeah. Cool. So we're kind of going backwards here again, but when it comes to actually, how should people find out what their ideal listener or ideal viewer is searching for? Are there any particular tools that you like to use?
Yeah. So I like to use the YouTube platform, because that's basic. You're going to be using YouTube's market and viewership. So let's do research on that platform to see what a similar market would be looking for. And so if you, let's say you help people with law for small businesses, I would type that into the search. I would like in many different forms. So lawyers for small businesses, legal contracts for small businesses, even like a partnership contract, how to make up a partnership contract. Like, think of all these little things that you could speak to, and type them into the YouTube search, and then see what videos have come up. I like to look at recent videos, so within the last 6 months, and if not within the last year, what has really like popped off, and do your own versions of that. Because again, we're trying to help YouTube's algorithm find a similar audience. So if there's already an audience for this topic, then it would be good for you to do videos on that. And the other thing we use too is TubeBuddy. So TubeBuddy is a YouTube channel management tool. It does many things, but one of the things that we mainly use for is the keyword tool. And with that tool, we could do research on what phrases people are searching for on the YouTube platform, on Google, that speak to your niche or industry. And you can, from within the tool, see those top performing videos, even see what tags they're using. And there's other things that TubeBuddy has also released, like topical analysis and stuff that we actually haven't even dove into. There's lots of things in there, but that's really been like the foundational methods that we've been using for our clients.
Nice. Yeah, I use TubeBuddy, and the keyword explorer is pretty good even on the free version. So I'll leave a link in the show notes for that. What about audio only podcast? Do you think it's still worth putting a podcast on YouTube? Because I know you can now add your RSS feed and it will bring it in automatically and it will just show your cover art. But obviously you can just do it manually and then you've got control over everything. Do you think it's worth it?
So I think that because this is like a video platform, and especially with the way the direction that YouTube's headed is like towards more like even TV, people watching on their TVs and that kind of thing. People want to see like visuals, imagery. They want to see a series, that kind of thing. So I would say if you are doing that, just don't expect much from it in terms of reach and views. I think that's the biggest thing that we have to do. That's also my job, is to manage expectations on YouTube, because there's just so many myths and like garbage out there about what to expect on YouTube. Get views fast and this and that, and it's like people get disappointed when they try the thing and they see that they're not really getting views. So if it's like you're really focused in on growing your podcast, it is audio only, and you just want like somewhere else to get a little bit more viewership, like less than 100 views or something like that, then sure, you can do that and then leverage like YouTube Music. And that's because when you upload it as a podcast, it gets distributed into these other algorithms. But if you really, really want to expand your reach on the platform and create a bigger impact, become known for this area of expertise, then you got to play the YouTube game, which is you got to film yourself doing that podcast episode and pay attention to the video packaging, titles, thumbnails, hooks, all that kind of stuff. And that will really lend itself towards what you want to achieve in your objective.
Yeah. Because for some of our clients, we do add the RSS feed or add them on just as audiograms as a playlist, just so that if somebody happens to be looking on YouTube Music, audio only, it's there. But we do have to be clear that, if you go for the video package, like the full thing, obviously the investment is going to be more, but we can actually sort of grow this as a YouTube channel as well. Have been experimenting with shorts from audio only podcast using B-roll, because I know that can be quite effective on kind of shorts, platforms that have shorts where it's like, there'll just be someone playing Minecraft in the background that they've just we don't do that, because we're not just going to rip someone else's Minecraft video, and then it's just audio only. So I think there is a way of sort of tapping into it that I'm kind of experimenting with at the moment, but it is obviously a lot harder.
I mean, with the shorts, that's a whole other conversation. But again, coming back to expectations, like as long as you know what you're using those shorts for, it's not necessarily you're going to get a client from them. It's really more so for reach and discovery, to bring people back into your longer form videos. And again, from that culture and trends report that I cited at the beginning of this conversation, they were saying like both long and short are very, very strong on the platform. So it's not like long or short, it's both, include both in your strategy, and just know like the reasoning behind each one, so that you know why you're doing it. Like, to give you another example, like our YouTube channel, we like to talk about different things. It's all under the umbrella of creating profitable content and content marketing and helping business owners grow. But, we do talk a lot about YouTube strategy and stuff on the channel, but we also have like video editing tutorials, and we also have, we talk about, like e-learning platforms sometimes, because this was more so in the past, but like, there's Canva tutorials on there. So because there's so many different things, we know that there's a certain amount of views that we're going to get from our channel, a certain amount of subscribers. It's going to grow at a certain rate. And we're okay with that, because we know that if we just like boxed ourselves into one topic, it wouldn't really fulfill, like I wouldn't be as happy as much creating this content. It wouldn't be as fulfilling. And you see all of these YouTubers eventually burning out because they're boxed into one thing, and they've evolved themselves as human beings, and they want to talk about these other things. But if you are someone who's totally cool with that and going all niche, you can grow at a faster rate. You will grow at a faster rate than like talking about multiple things. So it's just knowing that, and knowing the strategy behind why you're doing things, and being okay with that, and always testing to see how can you improve. That's the name of the game. So YouTube is a long game, as I'm sure you know.
Yeah, nice. And then just kind of finishing off the conversation, like there's loads to think about there. If anyone's listening to this and thinking, I've tried a lot of these things and they haven't worked, and I'm still getting 10 views per video if I'm lucky, and I've put 50 episodes on there or 50 videos on there, what are sort of 2 or 3 things, like where should they start looking to figure out the bottleneck, or what's causing that lack of views? Or is that the point where they need a professional to actually look at their channel? So
the first thing that you could do on your own is looking at your analytics. And I know that can kind of be like a black hole sometimes, especially if you're not someone who likes the data. But that's the first place that, when we do YouTube channel audits, we do an audit on the front end, like what the channel looks like, what are the titling, thumbnails, all this stuff. But we also very much do an audit on the back end analytics. What is the data saying? Because from there, you can see, is YouTube even showing the video? Like, is it even getting reach? And you can see that by the number of impressions that you're getting. And because if not, then that's telling you there's something here that isn't really, like, YouTube isn't really finding an audience for this. Like, it's the topics, you got to position it differently, or maybe you're not doing the search method or even the browse method. Maybe you're doing episode 17, interview with right? That's why. So there's that piece. But let's say you're getting a lot of impressions and reach. Those numbers are pretty good, but your views are low. Then that's telling you it's a packaging issue. So title, thumbnails, like paying attention to that. And getting better at that, testing out different things. You can test up to 3 thumbnails for a video now. I would encourage you to do that, if you're in this particular space. So there's different things in the data that you could pay attention to and say, like, okay, this is what I need to focus on. And yeah, of course, if that's not, if you need a little bit more guidance with that, we actually have what's called a YouTube authority checklist. And Joe, I'm not sure if you're going to be including this in the description, but it's basically, it's like 10 non-negotiable steps that we've found in working with our clients in really how to use YouTube to grow your business. And it's like, these are the things that you need to pay attention to. And so you can go down that list, and there's a set of like questions in there that ask you, like, are you doing this? Have you thought about this? So that's kind of a way for you to self-audit and see what you need to focus on next. And I found that, like, a lot of people have mentioned that's really been helpful, because there's so many things that you could focus on in YouTube. It can get really, really overwhelming. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, I didn't expect that question to turn out into like an actual free thing that people can go and get and actually help them to solve that problem. So thank you for that. And yeah, thank you for all that that useful information. Like, I totally agree that sort of YouTube is something to be considering as a podcaster. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Joe. I appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to Podcasting Amplified. If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave a review on your favourite podcast platform. We'll be back next time with another conversation offering more insights to take your podcast to the next level and help you to achieve success. Happy podcasting.